The vast emptiness of space had been silent for 3,000 years. In that time, the Vorthek Empire had grown to control over 200 star systems. Their massive ships moved through the darkness like hungry beasts, always searching for new worlds to conquer and new species to hunt. The Vorthek were perfect killers. They stood 9 feet tall with thick black shells covering their bodies like armor. Sharp claws grew from their hands, each one able to cut through metal. Their yellow eyes could see in complete darkness, and their powerful legs could leap great distances. They had been born to hunt, and they had never met anything they could not kill. Warlord Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devourer. He was the greatest hunter of his kind, with over 50 conquered worlds to his name. His shell bore the scars of 1,000 battles, each mark a reminder of prey that had tried to fight back. None had succeeded for long. Today, his fleet approached a new target. The third planet in a small system caught his attention. It was blue and green, covered in water and land. The reading showed millions of life forms scattered across its surface. This world would provide excellent hunting. Report, Kethver commanded in his deep, rumbling voice. His lieutenant, Vex Moore, checked the scanning devices. The planet shows signs of a young civilization, Warlord. They use simple chemical fuels for their ships. Their weapons are crude metal projectiles and basic energy devices. We count approximately 8 billion inhabitants. Kethver's mandibles clicked together in pleasure. 8 billion prey animals would provide sport for many cycles. What of their space defenses? Minimal. Warlord, a few small stations orbiting their planet. Several hundred tiny ships that appear to be their military vessels. Their largest weapon systems could not penetrate our shields. The Warlord walked to the great viewing window. Below him, the blue planet turned slowly. He could almost smell the fear that would soon fill its atmosphere. Every species reacted the same way when the Vorthek arrived. First came disbelief, then terror, then desperate attempts to negotiate. Finally came surrender and acceptance of their fate. On the planet's surface, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but he did not notice. His eyes were fixed on the screens showing massive objects approaching the outer edge of the solar system. "Sir, we're getting clearer readings now," reported Lieutenant Dan Miller from his station. "Whatever those things are, they're huge. Each one is at least 5 miles long." Jake rubbed his tired eyes. He had been an officer for 15 years, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this moment. The objects were clearly artificial, but they looked more like living creatures than machines. Their surfaces rippled and pulsed as if breathing. "How many?" Jake asked. 47 ships, sir. All heading directly for Earth." Admiral Lisa Kane entered the command center, her face grim. She had spent her career preparing for war with other nations, not visitors from the stars. "Captain Morrison, what's our status?" Jake stood and saluted. "Admiral, we have confirmation of 47 unknown vessels approaching our system. They'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 6 hours." Lisa nodded slowly. She looked at the screen showing Earth's defense fleet. 300 ships, their most advanced fighters and cruisers. Against the massive alien vessels, they looked like toys. "Have we attempted communication?" "Yes, ma'am. We've tried every frequency, every language protocol. No response." Dr. Ryan Brooks hurried into the command center, his lab coat still dusty from his research facility. As Earth's leading expert on the possibility of alien life, he had dreamed of this moment for years. Now that it was here, he felt only dread. "Admiral Kane," he said breathlessly, "I've been analyzing the energy signatures from those ships. The power levels are beyond anything we've ever seen. Each vessel could destroy our entire fleet." Lisa felt a cold weight in her stomach. "Are you certain, Doctor?" "I'm afraid so. Their technology's centuries ahead of ours, maybe more. If they wanted to destroy us, they could do it right now. Jake looked at the approaching ships on his screen. Then why aren't they? Why come all this way just to sit at the edge of our system? Dr. Brooks had been wondering the same thing. In all his years of studying the possibility of alien contact, he had imagined many scenarios. None of them looked like this. Perhaps they're studying us. Or maybe they want something we have. On the Devourer, Warlord Kethfer watched his fleet take position around the blue planet. Each ship moved to a precise location, surrounding the world like hunters surrounding cornered prey. It was a formation the Vorthek had used for 3,000 years. It had never failed. Begin the intimidation phase, Kethfer ordered. Lieutenant Dexmore activated the ship's main weapon. A beam of pure plasma lanced out, striking the planet's single moon. The ancient rock, which had orbited Earth for billions of years, vanished in a flash of light. Where Luna had been, only glowing debris remained. On Earth, every human who could see the night sky watched in horror as their moon died. The shockwave of the explosion would reach them in minutes, but the psychological impact was immediate. The message was clear. Resistance was futile. Jake Morrison stared at his screens in disbelief. They just destroyed the moon, he whispered. They destroyed the entire moon. Admiral Kane felt her hands shake, but her voice remained steady. All ships to battle stations. Launch every fighter we have. Admiral, Dr. Brooks said urgently, our weapons can't hurt them. That plasma beam just vaporized 70 quintillion tons of rock in seconds. I don't care, Lisa replied. If they want to destroy us, they'll have to work for it. Across Earth, military bases came alive with activity. Pilots ran to their fighters, soldiers checked their weapons, and civilians looked to the sky with growing fear. The pieces of Luna began to fall as meteors, lighting up the atmosphere with their burning trails. Major Alex Carter climbed into his fighter jet, one of Earth's most advanced aircraft. He knew it was useless against the alien ships, but he climbed in anyway. His hands moved automatically through the pre-flight checklist while his mind struggled to accept what was happening. Phoenix Squadron, this is Control, came the voice. Through his radio, you are cleared for launch. Your target is the lead alien vessel. Alex laughed, but there was no humor in it. Control, this is Phoenix Leader. You do realize we're about to attack something that just destroyed the moon, right? Affirmative, Phoenix Leader. Attack anyway. Alex pushed his engines to full power and shot into the sky. Behind him, 200 other fighters followed. They were Earth's finest pilots, flying humanity's best machines. Against the Vorthek fleet, they were gnats attacking eagles. Warlord Kethfer watched the tiny ships rise from the planet's surface. This was new. Usually, prey species surrendered immediately after the intimidation demonstration. These creatures were actually launching an attack. Shall we destroy them, Warlord? Asked Dexmore. Kethfer studied the approaching fighters with interest. No, let them come. This may be amusing. The human fighters reached the alien fleet and opened fire. Their missiles and energy weapons struck the Vorthak shields and vanished like raindrops hitting stone. Not a single alien ship was damaged. But something unprecedented happened. Instead of retreating after their weapons failed, the human pilots kept attacking. They flew patterns around the massive ships, searching for weak points that did not exist. Some even attempted ramming attacks, trying to sacrifice themselves to damage the enemy. On the Devourer's bridge, the Vorthek crew watched in confusion. In 3,000 years of hunting, no prey species had ever continued attacking after their weapons proved useless. The concept was alien to them. Warlord, Dexmore said uncertainly, they're still attacking. Their weapons cannot harm us, but they will not retreat. Kethfer's yellow eyes narrowed. This was not following the ancient patterns of the hunt. Perhaps they are too primitive to understand they are defeated. Send the surrender demand. The transmission reached Earth in dozens of languages, each one carefully translated by Vorthik scholars who had studied thousands of conquered worlds. Dr. Brooks listened to the message with growing horror. "People of the third planet, the alien." Voice said, "You are now prey of the Vorthik Empire. Surrender your strongest warriors for the great hunt. Your remaining population will serve as breeding stock and food sources. Resistance will only increase your suffering. You have one of your day cycles to comply." Jake Morrison looked around the command center. Every face showed the same mixture of fear and rage. Admiral Kane stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. "Dr. Brooks," she said quietly, "please send our response." Dr. Brooks activated the communication array. His voice carried across space to the waiting alien fleet. "This is Earth. We reject your demand. If you want our world, come and take it." On the Devourer, Warlord Kethver heard the response and felt something he had not experienced in centuries: surprise. No prey species had ever refused surrender after seeing a demonstration of Vorthik power. He looked at the blue planet turning slowly below his fleet. Perhaps these creatures were too stupid to understand their situation. Soon, he would teach them the price of defying the greatest hunters in the galaxy. The deadline passed without surrender. Warlord Kethver stood on his bridge, watching the blue planet continue its slow rotation. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever ignored his ultimatum. The silence from the world below was more disturbing than any plea for mercy would have been. "Begin the hunting phase," he commanded. The Vorthik fleet moved into attack formation. Their massive ships descended toward Earth like falling mountains, their weapons charging with deadly energy. This was how it always began. A few strategic strikes to break the prey's spirit. Then the real hunt could commence. Major Alex Carter watched from his cockpit as the alien ships approached Earth's atmosphere. His squadron had been reforming after their failed attack, but now new orders came through his radio. "All units, this is command. We have nuclear warheads fitted to long-range missiles. Your job is to guide them to target." Alex almost laughed. Nuclear weapons against ships that had destroyed the moon with a single shot. It was madness, but it was the only madness they had. "Roger, command." Phoenix Squadron moving to escort position. Below on Earth, Colonel Maria Santos coordinated the PFAS global defense effort from her bunker beneath the Pentagon. Every screen around her showed the same hopeless picture. The alien ships were larger than aircraft carriers and moved through the air as if gravity meant nothing to them. "Ma'am, we have reports from cities worldwide," her aide reported. London, Tokyo, New York, Moscow. The aliens are landing hunting parties in every major population center. Maria studied the tactical displays. The alien strategy was clear. They were not trying to destroy humanity quickly. They wanted to take prisoners, to hunt humans like animals. The thought made her blood boil. What about civilian evacuation? "Mixed results, ma'am. Some people are fleeing to the countryside, but others are staying to fight. We're getting reports of civilian resistance in every city." Dr. Amanda Price worked frantically in her linguistics lab, trying to decode more of the alien language. As Earth's leading expert in communication theory, she had been called in to analyze every transmission from the Vorthak fleet. "The structure is fascinating," she muttered to her team. "Their language has no words for concepts like mercy or surrender. They have dozens of terms for different types of hunting, but nothing about negotiation or peace." Her assistant, Dr. Lucy Henderson, looked up from her computer. "Amanda, I think I found something important. Listen to this intercepted transmission." The alien voices were deep and rumbling, but Amanda could now understand parts of their speech. What she heard made her blood run cold. "The prey continues to resist beyond the intimidation phase. This behavior is unprecedented. Request instructions on handling defective prey animals. Amanda grabbed her phone and called Admiral Kane directly. "Admiral, we need to talk immediately. I've learned something terrible about these aliens." Meanwhile, in downtown Chicago, Lieutenant Ben Taylor crouched behind an overturned car with his squad of Marines. 3 blocks away, a Vorthek hunting party moved through the streets like deadly shadows. Each alien hunter was 9 feet tall and moved with perfect silence despite their size. "Sergeant Williams, what's your count?" Ben whispered into his radio. "I see 6 of them, sir. They're checking every building, looking for civilians." Ben watched through his binoculars as one of the aliens effortlessly tore the door off a shop. The creature's claws gleamed in the sunlight, and its yellow eyes scanned the interior like a predator seeking prey. "Sir," whispered Private Jake Davis, the youngest member of his squad. "What's the plan? Our bullets barely scratched their ships." Ben looked at his men. They were scared, but they had not run. "That was something. We find out if they're as tough as their ships. On my signal, concentrate fire on the lead alien." The Marines waited until the Vorthak hunting party was directly below them. Ben gave the signal, and 20 automatic rifles opened fire at once. The bullets struck the lead alien, and for a moment, Ben thought they had failed again. Then the creature stumbled. Blood seeped from cracks in its shell. Alien let out a sound like breaking glass and spun around, searching for its attackers. Its yellow eyes found Ben's position, and it leaped toward them with impossible speed. But it was wounded. The creature's landing was clumsy, and Ben's squad scattered as planned. More gunfire erupted from multiple positions as other Marine units joined the battle. The Vorthak hunters had never experienced coordinated resistance. They were used to prey that ran in terror or fought desperately in small groups. The organized tactics of the human soldiers confused them. One alien felt a concentrated fire from 3 directions. Another was brought down by a rocket-propelled grenade that Ben's squad had been saving for armored vehicles. The remaining hunters retreated, something they had never done in 3,000 years of conquest. Ben watched them go, hardly believing what had happened. "Command, this is Alpha Squad. We've engaged the enemy and forced them to withdraw." "Repeat, the aliens can be hurt, and they can be driven off." The news spread through the human command structure like wildfire. The aliens could bleed. They could be killed. The hope that had been dying in human hearts suddenly blazed back to life. In space, Major Alex Carter's squadron finally reached their target. The nuclear-armed missile streaked toward the largest Vorthak ship, guided by human pilots who were willing to die to get them to their destination. The Vorthak point defense systems activated, destroying most of the missiles before they could reach the ship. But 3 got through. The nuclear explosions bloomed against the alien vessel's shields like tiny suns. The ship's shields held, but they flickered. For just a moment, the barrier that protected the Vorthak vessel wavered. It was not much, but it was enough to prove that even their greatest ships were not invincible. Alex's radio crackled with excited voices from other squadrons. "Phoenix Leader, did you see that? The shields actually flickered." "I saw it," Alex replied. "Command, this is Phoenix Leader. The enemy shields can be overloaded. We need more nukes and better timing." On the Devourer's bridge, Warlord Kethfer stared at the damage reports in disbelief. Shield generators damaged. 3 hunting parties had retreated from ground combat. Prey animals were shooting back with organized precision. "Warlord," Lieutenant Thexmore said nervously, "perhaps these creatures are more dangerous than they appear. Should we call for reinforcements?" Kethver's claws scraped across the metal deck. In his entire life, he had never needed help to conquer prey. The suggestion was almost insulting. "No, we are Vorthak. We are the apex predators of the galaxy. These animals will learn their place." But even as he spoke, Kethver felt something he had never experienced before. Deep in his mind, a small voice whispered that perhaps these creatures were different from other prey. Perhaps the hunt would not go as planned. Dr. Amanda Price finally reached Admiral Kane with her translation of the Vorthak communications. Her face was pale as she delivered the news. "Admiral, they don't see us as people. To them, we're literally animals. They have no concept that we might be intelligent beings capable of strategic thinking. They expect us to react like frightened." Pray. Admiral Kane absorbed this information. So they're not prepared for organized resistance. Exactly. Their entire military doctrine is based on hunting creatures that run in fear. They've never faced an enemy that fights back with tactics and coordination. This news spread through the human command structure as quickly as the report of alien casualties. Earth's military leaders began to see possibility where before there had been only despair. General Pete Adams, Earth's highest-ranking military officer, called an emergency meeting of all remaining commanders. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have learned 3 crucial facts today. The aliens can be wounded. Their shields can be overloaded. And they're not prepared for real military resistance." He looked around the room at the faces of humanity's finest military minds. "We're going to give them a war they never expected. They came here to hunt animals. Instead, they're going to fight soldiers." In cities across Earth, the pattern was repeating. Human military units were making contact with alien hunting parties and discovering that these perfect predators had weaknesses. They were fast and strong, but they fought like individual hunters, not coordinated soldiers. Captain Dan Miller, an engineer by training, had been examining the wreckage of a destroyed alien weapon. "Colonel Santos, I think I found something. Their weapons use a form of plasma that's incredibly hot but unstable. If we can disrupt the magnetic containment field." "Keep working on it, Captain. Every advantage we can find might save lives." As the first day of fighting ended, neither side was where they expected to be. The Vorthak had planned for a quick intimidation followed by easy hunting. Instead, they faced determined resistance from creatures that refused to behave like proper prey. Humanity had expected to be overwhelmed and destroyed. Instead, they had learned that their enemies could bleed and that superior technology did not always mean victory. Warlord Keffer stood in his private chambers, looking at reports from his hunting parties. Casualties among the Vorthak forces. Damaged equipment. Forced retreats. These words had never appeared in his reports before. He activated his communication system and sent a message to the Vorthak High Command. "The prey species on the 3rd planet is unusual." 3 months had passed since the Vorthak invasion began. What was supposed to be a quick hunt had become something no one had expected. The aliens found themselves fighting a war they did not understand against an enemy that refused to die quietly. Captain Dan Miller worked in his makeshift laboratory, surrounded by pieces of destroyed Vorthak equipment. His engineering team had been studying alien technology day and night, trying to find ways to turn the enemy's weapons against them. "Sarah, hand me that plasma rifle," he called to his assistant. "I think I figured out how their energy systems work." Dr. Sarah Johnson passed him the damaged weapon. She had been a civilian scientist before the invasion, but now she spent her days learning how to kill aliens more effectively. "Any luck with the shield disruptors?" Dan smiled for the first time in weeks. "Better than luck. I think I've found a way to overload their personal shields using our own electromagnetic pulse devices. The theory is sound, but we need to test it." Across the city, Dr. Lucy Henderson led her own research team in a different direction. While Dan worked on weapons, she focused on the aliens themselves. Dead Vorthak bodies had given her team valuable information about their biology and psychology. "Their brain structure is fascinating," she explained to her colleagues. "They have enlarged sections for hunting instincts and spatial awareness, but the areas responsible for complex social behavior are underdeveloped." Dr. Amanda Price looked up from her translation work. "That matches what I've learned from their communications. They don't have words for many concepts we take for granted. No term for strategic retreat, no concept of fighting for abstract ideals. What do you mean? Asked Lucy. They understand fighting for territory, for food, for dominance. But the idea of fighting for freedom or justice is completely alien to them. They literally cannot understand why we keep fighting when we know we're outgunned. This information had already reached the military commanders who were using it to plan new strategies. General Pete Adams stood in the war room, studying maps of alien positions around the globe. Colonel Santos, what's our status on the new tactics? Maria Santos consulted her reports. The hit-and-run attacks are working better than expected, sir. The aliens keep trying to pursue our forces into prepared ambush positions. They can't seem to understand that we're deliberately leading them into traps. Good. What about the urban warfare experiments? Outstanding results, General. Lieutenant, Taylor's unit in Chicago has perfected a technique they call building hopping. They attack from one building, then move through connected structures before the aliens can respond. The enemy keeps looking for them in the wrong places. Lieutenant Ben Taylor had indeed become an expert in fighting the Vorthek. His squad had grown from 6 Marines to 30 volunteers, including civilians who had learned to fight alongside trained soldiers. They had developed tactics specifically designed to confuse alien hunters. Remember, Ben told his newest recruits, these things think like predators, not soldiers. They expect us to run away or fight desperately from a fixed position. When we do something unexpected, it takes them time to figure out how to respond. Private Jake Davis, now a veteran of dozens of encounters with the aliens, raised his hand. What if they start learning our tricks? Then we come up with new ones, Ben replied. The key is to always do something they haven't seen before. The proof of this strategy came during the Battle of Michigan Avenue. Ben's unit had set up what appeared to be a desperate last stand in a shopping mall. When the Vorthek hunting party arrived, they found human soldiers barricaded behind store counters, firing wildly at the entrances. The aliens did what predators always do when they find cornered prey. They attacked directly, expecting the humans to break and run. Instead, they found themselves in a carefully prepared killing ground. The desperate humans were actually bait. The real attack came from above, where Ben's snipers had positioned themselves in the mall's upper levels. More soldiers attacked from the sides, cutting off the aliens' retreat. The Vorthek found themselves surrounded and outnumbered for the first time in their species' history. Most of the hunting party was killed, but one alien was captured alive. High Hunter Thexmore, second in command of the entire invasion force, was taken prisoner by creatures he had considered mere prey animals. The psychological impact of this capture rippled through the Vorthek fleet. In 3,000 years of conquest, no Vorthek had ever been taken prisoner by their prey. The concept was so alien to them that many refused to believe the reports. Warlord Kefver stared at the communication from the surface. His lieutenant, his trusted hunting companion, was being held captive by animals. The shame of it burned in his chest like acid. How is this possible? He demanded of his remaining officers. How can prey animals capture a high hunter? None of them had an answer. The events on the planet below did not match anything in their experience or their training. Prey animals were supposed to run, hide, or die. They were not supposed to set traps for their predators. Warlord, his communications officer reported, we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It appears to be from the captured humans. You mean the captured prey? Keffer corrected automatically. Yes, Warlord. Shall I put it on the main screen? The image that appeared showed High Hunter Thexmore sitting in what appeared to be a human medical facility. He was wounded but alive, and most shocking of all, he was being treated by human doctors. The prey animals were healing their captive instead of eating him. A human voice spoke from off-screen. This is Colonel Maria Santos of the Earth Defense Force. Your officer is receiving medical treatment for his injuries. He will be returned to you in exchange for the human prisoners you have taken. Kethver's mandibles clicked in confusion. They want to trade? Prey animals want to negotiate? The transmission continued. We propose a prisoner exchange at the coordinates we are sending you. Come alone and unarmed. Any attempt at deception will result in the immediate execution of your officer. The warlord ended the transmission and paced his bridge. Every instinct told him this was wrong. Predators did not negotiate with prey. Yet here were these creatures, holding one of his finest hunters and demanding an exchange. "What are your orders, warlord?" asked his navigation officer. Kethver realized he had no idea what his orders should be. Nothing in Vorthak military doctrine covered this situation. Contact the High Command. Request immediate guidance on prisoner exchange protocols. The response from the Vorthak homeworld was swift and confused. There are no prisoner exchange protocols. Prey animals do not take prisoners. Handle the situation as you see fit. Meanwhile, Dr. Sam Foster had been studying the captured aliens' behavior and psychology. As Earth's leading expert in behavioral analysis, he was fascinated by what he observed. The subject shows signs of severe psychological distress, he reported to Admiral Kane. Not from physical injury, but from the situation itself. Being captured by prey animals appears to be traumatic beyond our understanding. Can we use this information? Absolutely. I believe we can create propaganda that will be devastating to alien morale. If we can show other Vorthak that their invincible hunters can be captured and held by humans, it will undermine their entire worldview. This psychological warfare had already begun. Captain Rose Clark had been put in charge of broadcasting captured footage to the Vorthak fleet. The videos showed human soldiers using alien weapons, human engineers repairing alien equipment, and most disturbing of all, humans treating captured aliens with what appeared to be kindness. "This is Earth broadcasting to all Vorthak vessels," Rose announced in the alien language. "Your hunters are not as mighty as you believe. We have captured your officers, studied your technology, and learned your weaknesses. You came here to hunt prey, but you found predators instead." The broadcasts were having their intended effect. Reports from Vorthak communication intercepts showed growing confusion and fear among the alien forces. Some hunting parties had begun to refuse ground missions. Others had started requesting immediate evacuation from the planet. Warlord Kethver finally made his decision about the prisoner exchange. He would go to the meeting, but not to negotiate. He would go to see these strange creatures for himself, to understand what he was really fighting. The meeting took place in a neutral location, an abandoned airport outside of Detroit. Colonel Santos arrived with a small escort, as did several other human officers. Warlord Kethver came alone, as requested, but his ship remained in orbit overhead. The two leaders faced each other across 50 yards of empty concrete. Kethver towered over the humans, his 9-foot frame casting long shadows in the afternoon sun. But he was the one who felt small and uncertain. "You came," Santos said in carefully pronounced Vorthak. "I came for my officer," Kethver replied in broken English. "Where is High Hunter Thexmore? Safe. Where are our people?" The exchange proceeded according to the agreed terms. Human prisoners were returned in good health, while High Hunter Thexmore was released with his wounds properly treated. But the real exchange was of information and understanding. Kethver studied the humans carefully. They showed no fear of him, despite his size and obvious physical advantages. They moved with military precision and discipline. 6 months after the invasion began, the war had changed in ways no one could have predicted. What started as a simple hunt had become a nightmare for the Vorthak Empire. Their perfect record of conquest was crumbling, and worse yet, word was spreading across the galaxy. Commander Tony Wright stood on the bridge of the captured Vorthak transport ship, now renamed the Defiance. His team of engineers and soldiers had spent weeks learning to operate the alien vessel. Today would be the first test of their new capabilities. "All stations report ready, Commander," called Lieutenant Susan Baker from the navigation station. She had been a civilian pilot before the war, but alien technology was not much different from human systems once you understood the basic principles. "Dr. Miller, what's the status on our weapons?" Captain Dan Miller looked up from his modified control panel. His team had successfully integrated human tactics with alien technology. "All plasma cannons are operational, sir. The electromagnetic pulse generators are ready for deployment." Tony nodded and activated the communication system. "Admiral Kane, this is the Defiance. We are ready to begin Operation Payback." From Earth's command center, Admiral Lisa Kane watched the tactical display showing the Defiance approaching a Vorthic patrol ship. The alien vessel was alone, separated from the main fleet by human fighter squadrons that had learned to herd their enemies. Like sheep. "Defiance, you are cleared to engage. Show them what humans can do with their own technology." The battle was swift and decisive. The Vorthic patrol ship expected to face primitive human fighters with crude weapons. Instead, it found itself under attack from one of its own kind, operated by the very prey animals it had come to hunt. The alien crew panicked. Their training had never prepared them for this situation. How could prey animals be using Vorthic technology against them? The concept was so alien to their thinking that they could not respond effectively. "Commander," Wright's voice echoed across space as the Defiance disabled the enemy ship. "Attention, Vorthic vessel. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Your ship will be added to the human fleet. Your crew will be treated according to the laws of war." The psychological impact was devastating. Across the Vorthic fleet, crews listened to the impossible transmission. Prey animals commanding a hunter's ship. Prey animals offering mercy to their captors. The universe had turned upside down. On the ground, the transformation was even more dramatic. Colonel Wayne Mitchell had perfected the art of trapping Vorthic hunting parties. His latest operation in the ruins of Los Angeles was about to capture an entire squad of alien hunters using nothing but patience and superior tactics. "Remember," he told his soldiers, "they think like predators. They see what appears to be wounded prey and they attack without thinking. Use their instincts against them." The trap was elegant in its simplicity. A group of human soldiers appeared to be pinned down in a shopping center, firing desperately at imaginary enemies. Their radio calls for help were broadcast on frequencies the aliens could intercept. To the Vorthic, it looked like easy prey waiting to be taken. The alien hunting party approached exactly as Wayne had predicted. They surrounded the building and prepared to attack from multiple directions. What they found instead was an empty trap filled with explosive devices and automated weapons. The real human forces were hidden in buildings across the street, watching through cameras as the confused aliens searched for enemies that were not there. When the trap was triggered, the entire Vorthic squad was captured without a single human casualty. "Command, this is Wolfpack," Wayne reported. "Package delivered. We have 6 healthy aliens ready for questioning." The interrogation of captured Vorthic had provided invaluable intelligence. Dr. Frank Powell, Earth's leading expert in alien psychology, had learned disturbing facts about the Vorthic Empire. "They've conquered over 200 worlds," he reported to the military leadership. "But here's the important part. They've never faced organized resistance before. Every other species either surrendered immediately or fought in small, desperate groups." General Adams leaned forward. "Are you saying we're the first species to fight back effectively?" "Exactly. And the psychological damage we're causing goes far beyond this invasion. News of human resistance is spreading through their empire. Other conquered species are beginning to ask questions they've never asked before." This was confirmed by intercepted Vorthic communications. Captain Rose Clark's intelligence team had been monitoring alien transmissions and translating the growing panic in their ranks. "Listen to this," Rose said, playing a recorded message from a Vorthic commander to his superiors. The prey animals continue to exhibit impossible behavior. They use our own weapons against us. They capture our hunters and treat them with incomprehensible mercy. Request immediate reinforcements or permission to withdraw. The response from Vorthok High Command was swift and angry. There will be no withdrawal. The honor of the Empire is at stake. Continue the hunt until these animals are broken. But the Vorthok forces were already breaking. Reports came in daily of alien units refusing to engage human forces. Some hunting parties had abandoned their missions entirely and returned to their ships. The perfect discipline of the Empire's military was crumbling. Dr. Sam Foster had been studying this psychological breakdown with fascination. They built their entire society around the belief that they are the ultimate predators, he explained to Admiral Kane. When that belief is challenged, their whole worldview collapses. Can we use this to end the war faster? I believe so. If we can demonstrate conclusively that humans are superior fighters, the remaining Vorthok forces might surrender rather than face the humiliation of continued defeat. The opportunity for such a demonstration came when Warlord Keffer himself challenged a human military to single combat. The message was broadcast on all frequencies, reaching every human and alien in the solar system. I am Keffer, greatest hunter of the Vorthok Empire, the alien leader announced. I challenge your strongest warrior to face me in honorable combat. If your champion defeats me, my forces will withdraw from this system. If I am victorious, your species will surrender unconditionally. The human leadership debated the challenge for hours. It could be a trap, but it could also be an opportunity to end the war with minimal casualties. Finally, Major Sue Johnson volunteered to accept the challenge. Sue was not the largest or strongest human soldier, but she was perhaps the smartest. She had studied Vorthok fighting techniques for months and had developed tactics specifically designed to counter their natural advantages. I don't need to be stronger than him, she explained to her worried colleagues. I just need to be smarter. The combat took place on neutral ground, broadcast live to every screen on Earth and every ship in the Vorthok fleet. Warlord Keffer stood 9 feet tall, his claws gleaming in the sunlight. Major Johnson looked tiny by comparison, armed only with a simple combat knife. The fight began with Keffer doing what predators always do. He tried to intimidate his opponent with displays of strength and aggression. He roared, showed his claws, and made himself appear as large and threatening as possible. Sue ignored the intimidation completely. She had seen it all before in captured footage of Vorthok hunts. Instead, she watched his movements, learned his patterns, and waited for her opportunity. When Keffer finally attacked, Sue was ready. She used his own momentum against him, dodging his claws and striking at weak points in his armor. The warlord was faster and stronger, but Sue was smarter and more disciplined. The battle lasted 30 minutes. Keffer grew increasingly frustrated as his attacks failed to connect. Sue remained calm and focused, slowly wearing down her larger opponent. Finally, she managed to get behind him and place her knife at his throat. "Yield," she said quietly. Keffer stood frozen. In his entire life, he had never been defeated in single combat. The shame of it was overwhelming, but the alternative was death. Slowly, he lowered his claws in surrender. "I yield," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The impact was immediate and dramatic. Across the Vorthok fleet, crews watched their greatest warrior surrender to a human half his size. The psychological shock was devastating. If Keffer could be defeated, then no Vorthok was truly invincible, true to his word. The warlord ordered his forces to withdraw from Earth's orbit. But the damage to Vorthok morale was irreversible. As the alien fleet prepared to leave, something unprecedented happened. 3 Vorthok ships refused to follow the withdrawal order. Their crews had decided that they no longer wished to serve an empire that could be defeated by prey animals. They requested asylum from the human government, Admiral Kane accepted their surrender, and the defecting aliens provided detailed information about Vorthek military capabilities, technology, and the locations of other conquered worlds. "This is just the beginning," Dr. Foster explained to the celebrating human leadership. "Word of our victory will spread through their empire. Other conquered species will realize that the Vorthek can be beaten." He was right. Within days, the first reports reached Earth of rebellions on distant worlds. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were rising up against their Vorthek masters. The impossible had become possible, and hope was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. 1 year after the first Vorthak ship entered Earth's solar system, the galaxy was a very different place. Admiral Grace Thompson stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Defiance, leading a fleet of ships that combined human engineering with captured alien technology. Today they would finish what the Vorthek had started. "Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from the Kepler system," reported Commander Tony Wright from his station. "3 rebel fleets are under attack by Vorthek reinforcements." Grace studied the tactical display. The Kepler rebels were former slaves who had risen up against their masters after hearing about Earth's victory. They were brave but inexperienced, and the Vorthek were trying to crush their rebellion before it could spread further. "Set course for Kepler immediately," Grace ordered. "Maximum speed." The human fleet had grown far beyond what anyone had imagined possible. 50 ships now flew under Earth's banner, including captured Vorthak vessels and new designs that merged the best of both technologies. More importantly, crews from a dozen liberated worlds served alongside human officers. Captain Nick Davis commanded one of the escort vessels, the Freedom. His crew included humans, defected Vorthek, and members of the Zilani species, whose home world had been freed 3 months earlier. "All ships, this is Admiral Thompson," Grace announced. "We jumped to hyperspace in 60 seconds. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for every world that wants to be free." The jump to hyperspace was smooth and swift. Human engineers had improved on Vorthek technology, making their ships faster and more efficient than the original designs. When they emerged at the edge of the Kepler system, they found a battle already in progress. 6 Vorthek heavy cruisers were systematically destroying rebel ships. The local defenders fought bravely but were clearly outmatched. Bodies and debris floated in space, testament to the courage of beings who had chosen freedom over slavery. "All units, engage immediately," Grace commanded. "Priority targets are the Vorthek command ships." The human fleet struck like a hammer. Their opening salvo destroyed 2 Vorthak vessels before the aliens could react. The remaining enemy ships turned to face this new threat, but they were already doomed. The Vorthek had not learned from their defeat at Earth. They still fought like hunters, expecting their enemies to flee or fight desperately. Instead, they faced coordinated tactics and superior technology, operated by crews who had trained specifically to fight them. Major Sue Johnson, now commanding her own ship, led a boarding party onto the Vorthak flagship. Her team moved through the alien corridors with practiced efficiency, capturing key systems and forcing the crew to surrender. "This is Major Johnson to all Vorthek personnel," she announced in their language. "Your ship is captured. Surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Continue fighting and you will be destroyed." The psychological impact was immediate. The Vorthek crew had heard stories of the human who defeated their greatest warlord in single combat. Many laid down their weapons immediately rather than face her in battle. Within 3 hours, the entire Vorthek force was either destroyed or captured. The rebel fleet was saved, and another star system joined the growing alliance of free worlds. But the real victory was happening across the galaxy. Dr. Paul Green, now serving as humanity's first galactic diplomat, was coordinating rebellions on dozens of worlds through a network of secret communications. "Admiral Thompson," he reported from his ship, We're receiving confirmation from 17 different systems. The Vorthek Empire is collapsing faster than we predicted. The pattern was the same everywhere. Enslaved species heard about Earth's victory and began to question their master's invincibility. Local rebellions started small but grew rapidly as word spread. The Vorthek, who had ruled through fear and intimidation for 3,000 years, found themselves facing enemies on every front. On Earth, Ambassador Carol Reed worked with representatives from liberated worlds to establish what they called the Free Worlds Alliance. The old Earth United Nations building had become the center of galactic government, welcoming beings from across the stars. The Vorthek Empire has lost control of over 60 systems, she reported to the Alliance Council. Their remaining forces are retreating toward their home worlds, but they're being pursued by rebel fleets on all sides. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had been slaves for centuries were now working together as equals. Former enemies fought side by side against their common oppressors. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known. Freedom was worth fighting for. The final confrontation came when Admiral Thompson's fleet reached the Vorthek home system. The ancient cradle of the Empire was defended by the last of their great ships, commanded by surviving members of the old nobility. Supreme Warlord Vexthal, ruler of what remained of the Empire, broadcast a final message to the approaching human fleet. You have destroyed our order and plunged the galaxy into chaos. We will make our final stand here. Come and face the true power of the Vorthek. Grace looked at the massive defensive fleet arrayed before them. Hundreds of ships protected. The Vorthek homeworlds, including ancient dreadnoughts that had conquered countless civilizations. It should have been an impossible battle, but Grace was no longer fighting with just human ships. The Free Worlds Alliance had sent fleets from across the galaxy to join this final battle. Former slaves now commanded warships fighting alongside the humans who had shown them that freedom was possible. All ships, this is Admiral Thompson, she announced to the combined fleet. Today we end 3,000 years of tyranny. Today we prove that predators have no place among the stars. The battle was fierce but brief. The Vorthek fought with desperate fury, but they were facing an enemy they could not understand. The Alliance fleet fought not for conquest or plunder, but for the simple right to exist free from fear. Captain Davis led a squadron of mixed ships against the Vorthek Center, while Major Johnson commanded boarding parties that captured enemy vessels intact. Dr. Miller's electromagnetic weapons disrupted Vorthek shields, allowing Alliance forces to strike at their most powerful ships. Supreme Warlord Vexthal made his final stand aboard his flagship, the Eternal Hunter. When human Marines breached his bridge, he refused to surrender. I am Vorthek, he declared. I do not yield to prey. Then you die as you lived, replied Sergeant Kate Johnson, Sue's younger sister who had joined the war after Earth's liberation. As a relic of a darker age, the Supreme Warlord's death marked the end of the Vorthek Empire. Their remaining ships surrendered or fled into deep space, no longer a threat to civilized worlds. The greatest predators in galactic history had been brought down by creatures they had considered prey. In the aftermath, as Alliance fleets secured the former Empire's territory, the real work began. Billions of beings who had known only slavery for generations needed to learn how to be free. Worlds devastated by centuries of exploitation needed to be rebuilt. Humanity took the lead in this reconstruction, sharing their technology and knowledge freely. Earth's engineers taught former slaves how to build their own ships. Human doctors worked to heal species damaged by Vorthek genetic experiments. Earth's teachers helped establish schools on worlds where education had been forbidden. We're not building an empire, Admiral Thompson explained to skeptical Alliance members who wondered about human motives. We're building something better. A galaxy where every species can choose its own destiny. The transformation took years, but it was worth the effort. Trade routes that had once carried only tribute to Vorthek masters now carried goods and knowledge between free worlds. Scientific research that had been suppressed for millennia flourished as different species shared their discoveries. Dr. Amanda Price, now director of the Galactic Translation Project, worked to preserve the languages and cultures of species that had nearly been destroyed by Vorthek oppression. "Every world has something unique to contribute," she said. "The galaxy is richer when all voices can be heard." The former Vorthak worlds themselves were not forgotten. Those aliens who chose to abandon their predatory ways were welcomed into the Alliance as equals. They had to learn new concepts like cooperation and mercy, but many adapted successfully to the new galactic order. 5 years after the war's end, Ambassador Carol Reed addressed the First Galactic Assembly, a gathering of representatives from over 300 free worlds. The vast chamber buzzed with the voices of dozens of species, all working together to build a better future. "We stand here today because one simple truth proved stronger than any weapon," she said. "Freedom is not something that can be given or taken away. It is something that lives in the heart of every thinking being. The Vorthak could conquer our worlds, but they could never conquer our desire to be free." She looked out at the assembled delegates, beings who had once been scattered across the galaxy as isolated slaves, but were now united as citizens of free worlds. "Humanity did not defeat the Vorthak Empire," Carol continued. "Freedom defeated it. We simply reminded the galaxy that predators only remain in power as long as their prey believes they cannot fight back." The applause that followed came from beings of every description.